Hey guys, and welcome to a fierce competition between two of the old world's fiercest and most loyal competitors. On the left hand side, representing the Vampire Coast, we have Stormrunner of DBD up against the Greenskins and Meister Ordello. And it's a pretty funky Greenskin build for sure. Also some rather interesting units on the Vampire Coast roster, so we'll have to see how they do fare here on the fields of the Tower of Hoeth. Clearly the High Elves are hiding amongst their ivory towers and letting their enemies of evil battle out on the fields below. So for the forces of the Vampire Coast, we have cheap and cheerful zombie pirate deck hand mobs all the way along. Just happy to be here, resurrected for a short time, and they're going to be meat shields absorbing the initial damage, allowing the bigger units to saturate on top of them. And we have double animated Hulks. Animated Hulks for a long time have been considered pretty terrible, but Stormrunner is the master of using units you don't get to see terribly often and making them destroy their enemy. So interested to see how they perform here today. That is very low armor and pretty squishy for big monstrous units. Up in the skies, we have a couple units of Fellbats as well. Actually, one unit of Fellbats and one unit of Deck Droppers, which is double chevroned up. These guys can actually do some pretty consistent and damaging damage, if that makes any sense. It's a huge burst of damage if they do get to use all their ammunition, but they are rather squishy up there in the skies. In the back here, we do have one unit of Depth Guard, who their main job today is going to be bodyguarding the mighty Queen Bess, the beautiful cannon from the deep, which can do horrific damage, particularly to like units like Black Orcs, elite infantry in general. It will tear asunder. We do have a Morgul Hunter, the hero version of the Morguls all round. Can do some really nice damage, and of course, I believe is ethereal. Nope, maybe not. Let's take that off the top of my head. Let's double check that quickly. Boom, 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 boom. Nope, comes in with missile resistance, not ethereal, just looks very icky and sticky with his bluish glow there. Of course, anti-infantry, terror, stalk, armor piercing is a nasty beast indeed. We have the Diaphin on her big fat Crabbo here, looking as awesome as always, the mighty Squidward or Zoidberg, whatever you want to call him, coming in with Ghosts of the Past to summon those damned knights errant, as well as the Song of Informant. It is good to see someone not just spamming Invocation of Heck and so forth. We also have the Promethean summon, Spiteful Shot to give magic damage and better accuracy, and Tide Cool. Really cool Law of Magic, which certainly doesn't get enough love. And in the central pocket, we have the Shade Wraith Gunners, and it looks like we have, more Fellbats kind of pushing forward. So for the force of the Greenskins, their force is split into two, and a rather sneaky scheme is underway. We have some nasty Skulkers hidden here in the trees, as well as Black Orcs and the Crimson Killers, Regiment of Renowned version. The Swamp Things, Regiment of Renowned River Trolls, a unit you barely ever see. They come in with a really cool, overwhelming odor, -6 melee attack to everything all around. We also have Snotling Pump Wagons in here, looks like 3 units, and a unit of Night Goblin Archers, and the Night Shroud has been popped on them. We have a Goblin Great Shaman leading the forces on his Mighty Wolf, a character I haven't seen in a huge time since the Greenskins got their big rework and Grom and everyone, but beforehand was, you saw him now and again. He's coming in literally with Night Shroud, and that's about it, as well as Don't Even Try. So a very cheap Lord here, and using to get his force as close to the enemy as possible. Apart from that, we have a ton of Night Goblins, who of course do have Stalk, so the opponent's not going to be able to see these guys either. If we look down here in the tooltip, Vanguard, Stalk, and Expendable. And it looks like we have some more Night Goblin Archers, nasty Skulkers, more Night Goblins absolutely everywhere, including the War Boss. So everything you see is currently invisible to the Vampirates. They're not having a good time. They're trying to move away from the forest, perhaps expecting that a load of the Greenskin forces are hidden there. We do have a couple of Skirmish Cav as well. Triple Forest Goblin Spider Rider Archers, one of the best skirmish cav in the game, at least for their cost. They're cheap, they're sticky, they're poison you, big pain in the butt. Looks like one of the units of the Pump Wagons has been spotted simply because the Fellbats got a little bit too close, so I'm sure Stormrunner is a little bit suspicious now of where the Greenskins are going to be coming from, because of course those guys don't naturally have stalks. They must have had some kind of witchcraft. Look how fast this wolf is across the ground. Lightning speed, coming at 92 speed, bounding towards the enemy with gusto. Forest Goblin Spider Rider Archer is going to be pretty key here. They need to shut down those deck droppers and really do a number on them. The rest of the Greenskin force is advanced. I love this dual pincer approach. The opponent is not really sure where he's going to appear from. And you can see his battle lines aren't ready for this flank overload on this right-hand side. Shade Wraith Gunners, though, do pepper some Forest Goblin Spider Rider Archers, doing some pretty big burst damage out of the gate, as they did feature a little bit, or wander a little bit too close there. Logie Bogey Spore Sploders, one of the coolest names units in the game, is going to be one of the pump wagons today, and they're kind of just waiting on the wings for now. Of course, that shroud has finally worn off, and these Black Orcs and Crimson Killers have a long way to go, although it looks like Queen Bess currently has her sights trained on some Night Goblin archers instead, with the Fell Bats coming in then. Oh my god, one shot in the Goblins pretty much. My god, that damage was huge. Allowing the Fell Bats to shatter them in a matter of seconds. Awesome work from Queen Bess, up to 68 kills, although her second shot may kill half her own troops. And bang, not too bad, a lot of Fell Bats were up in the skies. So the Goblins have managed to engage in the front lines. Animated Hulks are hit with a smoke bomb, and the nasty Skulkers are again decimated by some lowly Goblins. Not a good display by them on the left, although they were also getting peppered by archers. And in the central core, the Swamp Things and the nasty Skulkers have managed to engage with the enemy. One big problem the Greenskin player is having is both of his Black Orcs, his heavy hitters, are quite slow to the party. In his gusto to try and shut down the enemy range, he's kind of left these units behind. Now going to get slowed down by deckhand mobs. Both units are stacked together as well, so Queen Bess launching a shot up into the skies. That is going to be insane damage value per shot. The Swamp Things have managed to surround the Diaphan and beat down some of the more chaffy units. Pump wagons are desperately trying to push into the back line, but getting bogged down on the rotten flesh of the deckhand mobs. Even the Goblin Great Shaman is struggling there as well. It looks like the animated Hulks have taken over bodyguard duty, and the back line Shade Wraith Gunners getting shut down by Forest Goblin Spider Rider archers. The glorious Damned Knights Errant have been summoned to the field. They're going to be used here to run over some Night Goblin archers, which is a good idea. They're one of the biggest threats to the Diaphan that the Greenskin forces do have. Now, where have those depth guard gotten to? It looks like they're over here pushing away the Goblin Shaman, and pretty much the entire right flank of the Greenskins has started to collapse and fall, up to 73 kills. Pretty good work, although those kills, of course, are taking down Goblins. Queen Bess continues to fire despite all the pressure in the back line. The Night Goblin, or the Goblin Great Shaman, unfortunately couldn't force its way in. Another big shot coming down on top of... Oh, it's so disgusting! That is so much damage. Black Orcs getting absolutely hammered here. Looks like the Crimson Killers have also been getting quite a lot of punishment and desperately trying to force their way through. Look at them just dragging their way through Treacle, trying to get to the Queen Bess artillery crew and shut her down for good. But it looks like another big shot's going to come in, destroying Black Orcs, and Queen Bess's damage value is going to be absolutely insane at the end of this. Unfortunately for the animated Hulks, they are currently being kited now. Forest Goblin Spider Rider archers just free firing into them, and that low armor is going to be a big problem. Unfortunately, not a particularly good display, I don't think, from the animated Hulks, which is to be expected. They're not particularly great, but maybe someone can change my mind. That is, of course, a challenge for you guys to try and accomplish. Death Guard are chewing their way through Night Goblins. They've taken a pretty incredible amount of damage somehow over here, but that's because they're being poisoned and slowed down, but they of course have the hunger and should be able to reduce themselves a nice little bit. The Swamp Things have been forced off at the moment, retreating behind the tails of the Black Orcs. So it looks like the Crimson Killers, made of sterner stuff, did manage to push their way into the back line, carving their way through Queen Bess's crew pretty quickly with those dual-wielding axes. But in the distance, the Diaphan will be coming to their aid, as well as the animated Hulks. And it's looking pretty bleak now for the Greenskins. A really fun build, which certainly had punch and certainly had enough to deal with the forces of the Vampires, but not shutting down Queen Bess. Having the Black Orcs slightly lagging behind did really cost them quite a lot. What I would have loved to see on the Night Goblin, I don't think he has his mushrooms. So if he has his mushrooms with him, he should be able to cast that second spell straight away, so he can shroud his units twice, ensuring the Black Orcs can get to the front lines at least without taking too much damage. But at the moment, Crimson Killers going down to the last man pretty much, and some Night Goblins will eventually make Queen Bess sing silently, with the Snotling Pump Wagons getting in there to assist. The Swamp Things have ridden. A lot of Greenskin forces are coming back on all flanks. Perhaps I spoke too early, wouldn't be the first time, as the Depth Guard in the distance are incredibly beat up at this point. The Deck Droppers running low on ammunition, and the Logie Bogey and normal Snotling Pump Wagons are doing some pretty decent work here in the back line, shutting down troops, saving the Goblin Great Shaman, who does need maybe a Vindictive Glare would have been really nice on him as well. It's dead cheap, and it would just bring a bit more utility to him all round. Tidecall coming in, slowing down the Skulkers, doing damage to the archers, allowing the Diaphan to break the resolve of the Greenskin hordes. The Swamp Thing's going to be a bit harder to push off, and it looks like Queen Bess is finally going to fall silent. I don't know if she has enough crew left to continue shooting. It looks like, yeah, just crumbling, no shooting here. And there's some Night Goblins coming in the back line, but Balanced Power may push over to army losses before he gets the opportunity. Forest Goblin Spider Rider archers continue to pepper Diaphan where possible, but she has a thick armoured shell around her, of course. 150 armour is pretty insane stuff. And it looks like the animated Hulks are actually going to be getting the upper hand here on the Swamp Things. and the Diathin coming in, clobbering them up to help finish them off. And all round the field, Greenskins do run in terror. Now, the pesky little Night Goblin Shaman may be able to rally his forces. Queen Bess actually is still firing. For some reason, she just wasn't earlier. Getting a last little hurrah, breaking some Night Goblin Archers' spirits and forcing them away from the main engagement. Unfortunately for the Greenskin player, Forest Goblin Spider Rider Archers are out of ammunition, and with that, there's nothing to take down the Diathin, who's coming with another Tidecore, a really cheap spell, which can do some nice work, and the Night Goblins aren't going to like that too much. However, they do get to point a big middle finger at Diathin as they run away, as they did manage to destroy the crew of Queen Bess. But I'm sure she can find a Vampire or Necromancer lurking around the battlefield somewhere on the local town to resurrect those guys back. So at the end of the day, it was for naught. Snotlin Pump Wagons trying to rally somehow. The Swamp Things as well, falling back, maybe going after the Depth Guard and really trying to scrap his way back in the game. That little Goblin Great Shaman destroying Elvish architecture as he goes. Such a cool model, the Wolves. I wish they were a little bit more powerful, because, I mean, a wolf should be, in theory, more powerful than a horse, right? Big snapping teeth, claws, and all that kind of good stuff. Unfortunately, the Wolves tend to be kind of the lower tier. But maybe in Game 3 with the Khan, like the Hobgoblins, maybe we'll get to see some Wolf Cavalry there. I'm not sure what they do right to battle. Night Goblin Shaman's going to be trying to lead the Depth Guard into the Swamp Things, who have done pretty decent work so far, up to 48 kills. Of course, the Depth Guard slayed many a more combatant, but this isn't the type of engagement they're going to enjoy too much, as they get lifted up, pounded, and Snotlin Pump Wagons in the flank as well. Depth Guard down to just 10 models. Looks like they're going to be saying goodnight, sweet prince, but there is simply no way to destroy this big, scary blob. Fellbats, or Deck Choppers, in fact, having used all their ammunition, decide to dive in a desperate attempt to rally their forces as the Hunter slaps a few of the Trolls to death. One big slap there seemed to take out multiple models, and it looks like Song of Enfrollment has gone down, leaving the Greenskins to run from the field. But they'll come back and stab another day, I'm sure. Very well played to these guys. Really awesome builds all round. Seeing some units you don't get to see terribly often in the form of the animated Hulks, and a lovely sneaky stabbing scheme from Mr. or Meister Odello, who did some pretty good work. Hope you guys enjoyed. Before we go into the damage value and all that good stuff, if you did enjoy, feel free giving it a big old thumbs up to the video. Helps push it out to more people. And as well, if you haven't subscribed yet, why not? There's loads of good Total War Warhammer content. We've got hundreds of videos out already, and we do drop a new one every single day, as well as a couple of streams. Hopefully having a stream up on Monday of my Warhammer World Championship Tournament Group 2. I'm still trying to play my last game, which will hopefully get played today, because if not, we're going to struggle to get it done, because I'm afraid I work weekends. But yeah, all good stuff all round. So, for the forces of the Meister Odello and Stormrunner. Meister Odello, nice little Goblin Great Shaman on his beautiful Wolf. Not really getting much damage value, 464. He was disgustingly cheap though, simply coming in with that Night Shroud effect. And we also have the Night Goblin Shaman. Apart from that, the Goblins across the front line and the Nasty Skulkers did pretty decent work across the board. I mean, one or two did really poor, and other ones performed really well, so you can kind of average it out. This unit of Nasty Skulkers doing very good up against some animated Hulks, doing 927 damage value, not bad for some cheap boys. Unfortunately for the build though, not having the Madcap Mushrooms to enable the double Night Shroud, the Blackhawks really got punished, and I like them here. I like mixing them in with the rest of the kind of chaffy Greenskin force. Really good at cracking open the shells of those crabs, and having those elite troops in there just to kill infinite levels of chaff is quite nice, but you have to ensure they make it there, and these guys really underperformed. The Crimson Colors getting slightly better damage value. That's probably because they killed a lot of the crew of Queen Bess. The Arch line as well got obliterated early on by a really nice push by Stormrunner. Apart from that, the pesky Forest Goblin Spider Rider Archers did okay, nothing to write home about, to be honest, and the Swamp Things performed very well. You're not going to get to see it terribly often, still getting 1,000 damage value, 6,849 damage dealt, as well as that debuff, a nice kind of combination with the Black Orcs to take down whatever the Vampire Coast can throw at them apart from the range, and that's really what caused the problems. The Mighty Snotlin Pump Wagons did okay across the board, nothing too amazing, but actually pretty poor value. The Logie Bogie Spore Sploders, a very cool name, but unfortunately more flash than, or more flash and style, I suppose, than substance, unfortunately for them. As for the mighty Storm Runner, Diathin performed pretty admirably. 8,878 damage dealt, 1,171 damage value. Also an absolute huge tank, 93 kills. A big target that the Goblins unfortunately couldn't drag down. It's always cool to see her here. I think competitively you probably want to bring her with an Invocation of Nehek Vampire Fleet Captain, just kind of vibing nearby, healing her up. But it's really nice to see the Lore of the Deep, as it's a really thematic lore. It's very cool, some really decent spells, but unfortunately Lore of Vampires is just far too powerful to kind of miss out on normally. The Mongol Hunter performed very well as well, 2,693 damage dealt. Not the greatest damage value, but it still had pretty much full health by the end, and still had plenty left to give. The Zombie Pirate Deckhand mob somehow got some really good value as well. Normally I'm used to seeing these guys get basically nothing, but 660 here, 700, and the others kind of back down to normal, just being meat shields to hold chaff at bay. Depth Guard as well. They did, I think, gain a chevron when they started with 2. Again, 9,385 damage dealt, 881 damage value, 157 kills. All seems rather impressive until you realise how expensive they are, and they basically spent the entire time killing goblins. But again, someone needs to clear the chaff and protect the back line, and they did that job rather well. Shade Wraith Gunners had some initial awesome opening volleys, but Spider Rider Archers suiciding into them managed to shut them down, so very poor display by them in the end. Fellbats, of course, were sacrificial. Now, the units we're all looking forward to, the Animated Hulks. 30 kills, 951 damage value, the other one only 388, so a mixed bag, not too terrible. On the left still had plenty to give as well, being pretty much full health at the end of the battle, and getting some really lovely damage value, so maybe saturating them on top of troops against the Greenskins isn't the worst idea in the world. Deck Droppers struggling to get their own value, but someone who certainly didn't, Queen Bess, 180 kills, annihilating some of the range threats which could have punished the Diathin, and also basically deleting 2 of the Blackhawks. Is scary stuff. 2,822 damage value, 22,778 damage dealt. Very impressive work. If you want to see your replays up on the channel, feel free to join my Discord. There's a link down below in the description, as well as to other links how you can support the channel. But until next time, guys, peace, peace. And as always, stay awesome.